All right. Hi, everyone. Welcome. I'm immigration lawyer John Khosravi. Thank you for tuning in to another weekday, 5 p.m. Pacific Q&A about U.S. immigration law. And I'm attorney John Khosravi of the JQK Immigration Law Firm. Glad to have you here. We're going to open up the Q&A in a moment. To just come up with, I've had a lot of questions pop up from people, comments to my videos, ask us stuff. So feel free to ask them here. We'll get into it to the extent possible. Everything here is obviously educational, just general only. It's not intended for individual legal advice, but it kind of wants to guide you into the direction of which way to go and to learn a little bit more about the complicated immigration situation that we're all facing and what we're in, because there's a lot of stuff, a lot of questions I see people have and they're worried and all that stuff. So we want to really prepare for that. Just remember, results vary. Can't give specific advice. I don't know exact timelines. It's not possible for anyone to give you a timeline as cases vary so drastically. But as people trickle in, I'm just talking about what's going on right now. The National Visa Center is processing cases, though they've slowed down. I just note that they don't accept anything by letter anymore. If you want to contact them, it's all done via their website on the Department of State's website, where you could contact them in the special boxes and make a request for something to be done about a case. A lot of times it's stalled, lost, documents are missing, and the like. They're trying to digitize everything to make things more streamlined that way. So hopefully that could help you out in the process. But what else is going on with the typical stuff? People getting married, people bringing fiancés over, people still investing and starting businesses in the United States, and I'm helping them through that process. And it's been a lot of fun doing so. It's a lot of work. It gets you get tired because of fighting all the time with the government over what's needed. But that's just this par for the course when you're an immigration attorney, and you're fighting day in day out in this process. Thank you so much for several people that joined. Ashko, Devian, Ravindar, username 01, very interesting name. Let me know where you're coming from with city, state, or country, and what kind of immigration issues or questions that you have. People are still trickling in. We had a lot of requests, especially over the weekend, a lot of different questions about different types of cases. Obviously, a big one is, what's going on with my case if I'm, waiting for the embassy. The embassies are essentially not doing interviews in most cases, especially for green card cases. So those are stalled and they're backing up. These cases are just piling up. So when they do reopen, you can expect a delay. And sometimes cases need background checks, so it takes longer to get those. They have to go to the U.S. for them to do background checks. They might not be full staffed in the United States. So there's a lot of these kind of problems that are happening. There may be embassy employees that are sick, so there are less people there. So, for example, Minta Soup says, when is the system going to open? Well, the system is open and operating. They're just not doing interviews. And so just like and rest not just in immigration, but everywhere else in the world, and Nikhil asks as well, when do you think the embassies will open? Whenever you think, the situation gets better. Like, for example, I don't know in California when things are going to open up everywhere. So no one has an answer to that. We're just waiting for the people in charge to let us know. I don't know when things are opening. That's just me randomly guessing something that I have no facts or information about. So I can't really do an intelligent decision or discussion about that. You just have to be patient, and that's just the way it is. Unfortunately, this coronavirus situation is a mess. And I was saying, the embassy employees, even if they do reopen, you might have employees that are sick. And if they're sick, then there's no one else there to interview you. So I have to see what happens. Mita Soup says, my case is pending past 25 months, still no update. We'll have to see what kind of case you have and where it is. You could always contact the National Visa Center or the USCIS or State Department. It really depends on where it's stalled and what kind of case it is. So there's a lot more information that I would need to talk about that. Username 1 says, I applied spouse visa. Can I apply for unemployment? Filing for unemployment is separate from the spouse visa. So do what you got to do. If you lawfully could file for unemployment, I don't know the laws in your state and your circumstances. But be mindful that eventually there's going to be an affidavit of support part. And I don't know what kind of case that you have, if it's adjustment of status or consular processing. But if they get to, the idea of looking at your finances and and you don't have the finances ready to go, it's not that you file for unemployment. It's the fact that you're unemployed is problematic. So you might need a joint sponsor. You might need to show you have a lot of assets. There's a lot of things going on. That kind of case, talk with a lawyer in private to see what's going on. Minnesota, VAWA, Vermont, VAWA takes a while sometimes. Again, I don't know your particular case, but, VAWA takes a while sometimes. But there's a lot of pro bono lawyers and agencies that could help you with that one. User 590 says, I applied for my spouse. I'm on 30. It's been more than, let's see what else. More than what? You got to finish your sentence. In the meantime, Nikhil says, will there be any effect on H-4 visa holders if they go for stamping? I don't know what kind of stamping. It's for visa holders. So it's hard to even get a visa, and also it depends on what country you're from, and they might be changing the rules in the next 20 days. So there's a lot going on. If you're there, I'd have to review your case in private to see what's going on. Classic Girl says, can I ask a question about VAWA? Not really. I'm not an expert in VAWA, so I don't really want to get into that. But Sandeep says, hi, sir. Hi to you too as well. User 590 says, I applied for my spouse I-130. It's in more than a certain amount of time. Didn't finish the sentence. But typically, I get this question every video. How long does it take? And that's a question that gets asked a lot. Unfortunately, there's no good answer to that. If you want to know timelines on an I-130, you could always visit uscis.gov and look up your case type, and it'll give you a general estimate of when the I-130 get approved. It's not reliable. Sometimes it's much faster, sometimes much longer. Depends on the case and the issues. But look to there. That'll give you a general understanding of what's going on. But if you filed your I-130 with an adjustment of status application, then you need to look up the adjustment of status timeline to see how long that takes. On the other end, well, to finish that up, right now with the embassies being shut down, that's another issue of, or the interviews that both embassies and interview at USS shut down. It's just taking longer and longer for a spousal visa case. Now, if you're going to National Visa Center, there's delays with the State Department. They're shut down, so it's just unknown how long things are going to take. Mintu Saab says, my wife, she's stuck in India with a green card due to coronavirus. She can't come back. Will that affect citizenship? If she's outside the United States for more than 6 months, it could affect it. If outside more than a year, then definitely will affect it. But if it's more than 6 months, but less than a year, she needs to be able to show that she is really, living in the United States, has a life there. So when you apply for citizenship, there's a thing called a continuous presence requirement. And if you're outside of 6 months, they could say you actually we're not continuing your residence in the United States. But if it was just a situation where she's stuck outside because of coronavirus and could prove it, and she has life in the United States, for example, she has a house there, work there, life here, you could overcome that, but you have to document it. And that's why you have to really, when the citizenship time comes, talk with the lawyer to see the exact situation, the timelines, count the physical presence she's had here, to see how it affected and how to prepare for it beforehand. Because nowadays under Trump, they've gotten really strict on citizenship, and they could really get into why you're outside, what was the reason. Because, even if coronavirus happened, 6 months outside, she could have came earlier, they could maybe argue. It really just depends on the facts of your personal life, and that's what you have to get into and look into. Jas 2013 says, my name was updated for Form I-485. What is the meaning of this status? Well, there might have been error in your name, so they have to correct it, and that means they corrected your name. That's probably what it means. Look at your form and make sure, see if you had a mistake. And that's really important right here. It's going to pop up. But for people that are filing their applications on their own, if you're doing so, whatever you send the government, make sure to make a photocopy of everything so you have it in case you need to talk to a lawyer later. They know exactly what you sent them, because a lot of times people come to me, you don't have copies of what they sent, and I don't know what they did, and I don't know what they said, and then I'm sort of guessing, and I can't get a full picture of what happened. Jas says, I'm sorry, not Jas. Classic Girl says, do you do business visas? Many types, not all of them, but many types of business visas. So it's a kind of a vague question. You have to be specific on what your question's about. You're welcome, Mintu Sap. Thank you so much. So, for example, business visas mean a lot of different things. It could be people getting hired in the United States. There's several different categories for that. It could be people investing in the United States. There's different categories for that as well. So, and there's work visas. There's green card versions. So it depends on what you're looking for. Dennis Obeng says, how long does it take when you petition for your fiance? So it's a question I get also every day. When you do a fiance petition form I-129F, historically, in the last couple of years, it'll take 6 to 8 months for the initial I-129F to get approved. It could be faster, it could be slower, it could be 2-3 months, it could be 10 or 11 months. If you get a request for evidence, meaning there's something missing in there, it could be even longer. Once that's approved, it goes to the embassies to set up an interview. Right now, the embassies are shut down, so I'm not sure how long it's going to take. And the travel ban potentially affects fiancé visa cases. So as long as that new travel ban President Trump did is still occurring, then you can't even get it. But maybe 1, 2, 3 months if you're fast to get the embassy interview. The situation the embassy interview is you have to schedule yourself when you have your paperwork together. So some clients have everything ready to go. Some clients might take months and months and months just to give me some basic documents. So that affects the timeline drastically. And then an interview happens. Some people get approved right then for their interview. Some people will go into what's called administrative processing, which is reviewing the case. And that could go anywhere from 1 month, 3 months, 6 months, a year, 2 years, who never knows how long. And so that timeline becomes hard. But once they get the visa, they could travel to the United States, have a window of time to come to the United States, and then get married and start the green card process here. That time, how long it takes is all over the place as well. But I just want to give you a heads up on how the initial process is until they enter the United States. Classic Girl 30 says, I have a brother in Dubai to invest here in the US. What are requirements? So it depends on what kind of investment they're doing. If they're doing an E2 investment, and that depends on what passports they have for which countries, there's not a minimum amount, but they have to invest enough money to be able to run the business and stuff. If they're doing an EB5 to get a green card, I can't recall the exact amounts, but it's almost $1 million or more. And you have to, start a business, invest the funds, spend all the funds, and then apply for the green card. It might take 3 months to a year, 3 months, maybe longer, for them to accept the initial investment. Then they get a green card, come to the United States, and 2 years later, they have to show and apply for a new application that says they have created 10 full-time jobs in the United States. It is much more complicated than I'm making it. This is super simplified, much more complicated. It's one of the most complicated immigration programs there are. But that's the basics. But if your brother's got enough money to invest, he should definitely set some time with an immigration lawyer to have a video consultation and really go over it, because we have to trace to see how the money was earned. It has to be lawful money, and it has to be very detailed. They don't just accept money randomly for this investment. You have to really go back maybe sometimes 15, 20, 30 years to see how this money was originally earned. It's very strict. And then show how it was transferred to the United States. And then we have to know your brother's background too, because his background comes a lot into it. We have to make sure he's got a clean history, clean background, hasn't done any violations of any kind. But eventually, yeah, he'll get a temporary conditional green card, and after 2 years, he has to file for a new one to see if the investment he made created enough full-time U.S. jobs. And so if he didn't, he loses the green card. So it's a hard process, not an easy kind of thing. Like imagine people 2 years ago who invested, and all of a sudden coronavirus hits, and the company they invested in lays off all their employees. So now they're going to file for removal of conditions, the 2 year mark, to keep the green card, and they don't have any jobs. So it's a very risky endeavor. So I always tell people, if you're comfortable losing $1 million and you still won't lose sleep over it, you won't lose your livelihood, or you'll still be living fine, then do it. But I have people sometimes who want to give all their money to do this program and they have nothing else. And I say it's too risky. This isn't meant for people who have $1 million. It's meant for people who have $10 million and don't mind losing 1 million of it. If you don't have that kind of ratio, then you shouldn't take those kind of cases. She also asks, Classic Girl says, do you take cases in Florida? I take cases from all over the country. It depends on what kind of case it is. I don't take every kind of case. But almost all the cases I take don't require me to be in the location you're in. So I do it everything by mail, phone, email. And so it doesn't really matter where I am. I could be there for you and help you out. We can do stuff by video and emails and the like, phone calls. But it just depends on what kind of case it is that you have. If you're interested, just email me, info@jqklaw.com. That's info@jqklaw.com, and let me know what kind of immigration issue that you have, and I'll come back with information about setting up an initial consultation so you can review the cases to see what's going on. User 590 says, when I applied for my spouse at 130, I was not a citizen, but now I do need to send the copy passport. Okay, so user 590 started the green card process when he was a green card holder, but then became a citizen. Yeah, you should update the government that you're a U.S. citizen now, so they have you in the have your spouse on the proper line. But practically speaking, be prepared for you to send it multiple times and then for them to get it. I have several cases like this, and I have to resend the passport. And it's not your passport, it's your naturalization certificate. And so you're welcome, Classic Girl. And so I send naturalization certificate several times to USCIS, and I let them know by the email online USCIS.gov system as well. And I let them know by phone as well. And it takes many hours for them sometimes to update the system that you're a U.S. citizen. So be prepared for that. It's a mess. Everything in immigration sounds easy and looks easy, but practically speaking, most of the time it's a hot mess. Try to get it done. But you should update them with your naturalization certificate, not your passport. Naturalization certificate is the primary document. Passports can be given by mistake, so I don't usually rely on passports. It's rare, but they do get given out by mistake. Naturalization certificate requires a lot more analysis before they approve it, so that's what you want to do. Although, unfortunately, during the previous president's administration, they gave like 30 naturalization certificates to people that were being deported by accident, so mess-ups do happen. But it's much more reliable and consistent than the passport system has been. So some good questions. You see like what we're dealing with immigration. And it was always like this. It's not a new Trump thing that these kind of headaches exist. But, it's the process. You got to help people through it. Mintu Saab says, will collecting unemployment affect your case? So I discussed this earlier. It depends on what you're doing and what your case is. So Mintu, I don't know exactly what your situation is. But what typically comes up is what I talked about earlier, is that if you are collecting unemployment, which means you're unemployed, if you're trying to sponsor somebody through an affidavit of support, that becomes troublesome there because you don't have enough financial income to be able to support that foreign person coming in. But with regards to the question I get typically about this is, if you have a green card, does it affect your case if you apply for unemployment? Well, as long as you don't lie or something like that, unemployment is not a public benefit in the sense of those things that you're not allowed to get as a green card holder or require means testing or something like that. I don't want to get into what that means. But so if you are a green card holder, I wouldn't be afraid of getting unemployment as long as it's lawful, for no worry that it's going to affect your citizenship case or naturalization case. That shouldn't be something that worries you. You should take advantage. You've paid into unemployment in those kind of scenarios. All right, so we got a lot more people joining. Oscar, Elizabeth, Shalu, Bihar, thank you for joining. Let me know what city or country you're from and what kind of immigration issues you have. Eliza says, my sister just got a residence. Can she fix my papers less than 10 years? It's a much more complicated issue than that. First of all, your sister, to be able to apply for a sibling or brother or sister to be able to apply for each other, they have to be a U.S. citizen first. So if your sister's a resident, she can't even start the process for you. If she does start the process for you, it's going to take 10 to 20 years before your time in line will come up for a brother and sister or a green card case. And in the meantime, if you're living in the United States or violating immigration status here, that's going to be a problem, which means you most probably won't be able to get a green card. So I need a lot more information about your background, how you enter the United States, if you maintain lawful status or not. And, a brother-sister case probably not going to help. If you did enter the United States lawfully but overstayed, marriage to a U.S. citizen would help, or some other categories. You're a victim of abuse or something like that. But it's going to be hard for your sister to fix your papers. And so it's going to be difficult. But I need to talk with you to get the whole picture of what's going on in your background for me to give a better answer to that. I just want to give you some different ideas about the issues that pop into my mind when someone says something like that and what makes it troublesome. So there's a lot of things going on that you have to deal with, but it looks like a hard case. Esmeralda, Rahul, Hamza, Lovepreet Singh. That's interesting. Thank you for joining so much. This is live Q&A with immigration lawyer John Khosravi. Let me know what city, country you're coming from. You're welcome, Liza. And what kind of immigration case you have. My email is info@jqqlaw.com, and I'm doing this Monday through Friday, 5 p.m. Pacific, primarily on TikTok. Name is Immigration Lawyer John. John is John. And I'm also on my Facebook page for my law firm, JQK Law Firm. And later on, I'm going to post a video of this. Oh, Houston, awesome. I'm going to post a video on this on YouTube. So you have that on my JQK Law Firm YouTube page if you need to reference it or catch other ones when you can't come join at 5 p.m. There's several people in the group that come regularly watch this kind of stuff. New York, 2 minutes, not that nice. It's a real national affair here. TikTok is all over the place. But you guys, it's 8 o'clock. You should get, I was going to say go to sleep, but it's not that late yet. Whatchamacallit, Willis joined. Good to see you again. If you haven't already, please follow the page Immigration Lawyer John on TikTok, and just like and watch the video so I know you're there, so I can do this stuff more often. I'll keep doing this live stuff until people are still enjoying it and asking questions. I like talking about immigration, so I'm here for you. Let me know. Let me know if you have some other questions. Just pop up, throw it out there really quick. Let me wave back for a colleague in Facebook that's watching. Thank you so much. Good to see that you're here. So the immigration system, again, is not shut down. It's still operating. They're just not doing in-person activities, which is primarily people doing interviews, biometrics, which is the fingerprinting, and people, going to oath ceremony. So this is when you get your citizenship interview approved. You have to go to an oath ceremony to say, I promise to be a good American, or say something like that, and then they approve the case for you to be able to stay in the United States. So as far as a DACA update, there is no update on DACA. The Supreme Court still hasn't made a decision. So if you have a DACA that's going to expire within the next year, you should probably renew it. But talk with a lawyer to make sure the document is proper. Some lawyers say, no matter what, just renew it, even if it's more than a year, just so you have more time on that. But, it's a personal decision because there's financial, there's a filing fee and stuff you got to take into consideration. But, something to look at to see what's going on, if it's something that helps you or not. But hopefully, it continues. DACA as a savior for a lot of people who don't have work authorization, but they grew up here. It's very hard for them to go back to their home country. Essentially, DACA came about under President Obama's administration, something he created called Deferred Action for Childhood Arrivals. And this is where people came to the United States at a young age and they stayed here and graduated high school, and they were allowed to, if they were here in a certain date and enough time, there's a calculation for it, they're able to get what's called deferred actions, which means they won't try to deport them unless they're like doing criminal activity. And also they'll give them a work permit, which also gets a social security number. Whatchamacallit says 2 months still waiting on my wife's 10-year PR. Yeah, it's gonna take more than 2 months. It's gonna take maybe 2 years even for that. For if you're going from conditional residency she was approved the interview. Oh, you already did the interview, and so yeah, that's the situation. I don't know. So it takes a couple months. If you see it takes more. At this point, if you have a lawyer, I would have a lawyer email, send some letters to see what's going on. But a lot of times they say wait 4 months or something like that. Sunita says, hi, I'm a U.S. citizen. I plan to apply my mom and dad for green card. Well, yeah, it's a good idea. You should do that if you're a U.S. citizen while they still allow it. Now, you got to keep in mind that the current travel ban by President Trump, which is supposed to last at least 60 days, does affect parents of U.S. citizens. So that's going to be a problem right there. And secondly, the new public charge rule is going to maybe be problematic, where they're going to look and analyze at a case and see whether they can afford to live here. Now, Sunita follows up and says, they don't have birth certificates. Is it a requirement for real birth certificate? Normally it is, unless we could show that those don't exist. So I'm guessing your parents are from India from your name. What happened, especially in partition when India and Pakistan were separated in Bangladesh, a lot of people lost their documents. So it is typical for older Indian people not to have their documents anymore. In this kind of situation, we have to see what it is. They could go, there's a list, there's a formula, there's a sheet that says exactly what to do on the visa website. It's called a visa reciprocity chart. You look up the one for India. But I think typically you get some sort of letter from the authorities in the local jurisdiction there that says we can't find anything in the record. And then your parents try to get other documentation, maybe brothers and sisters or other people that are witnesses to the birth, write letters, get, school documents that show what their names were and that kind of stuff. Alternative documents, maybe church records or religious records to show it, and you just hope for the best. But it is troublesome when you don't have it. It is generally a requirement unless some exceptional situations exist. Those are the kind of situations where you want to consult with a lawyer to see what's going on. That's the best way to deal with that. Sangeeth, hey to you too. Good to see you. You said I have a question about getting a permanent green card. So yeah, let me know your question. Washmal says we were married 3 years before we applied. So Washmal had a green card interview with immigration, went there, still no decision. Again, sometimes it just takes a while for them to give you the decision. Sanger says, I apply at 130 now. Okay. Good stuff. What kind of case is it? QGT says, why is everything in the U.S. Complicated about immigration? Well, immigration's a very politicized thing. So a lot of people don't like immigrants. A lot of people don't like people coming here taking jobs. And so it's very political, just like the tax code. It's very political. And when you have laws made by Congress, and it depends on who's in power and what kind of groups have power and this kind of stuff, they'll make these complicated rules just to benefit some people and not other people, and it gets very complicated. But aside from the politicized nature of it, it's they made a decision that we let certain people come and certain people not come. And then when you say who can't come, when you're trying to block other people, you have to make these rules. But because human life is so complicated, to make rules that like apply to everybody, you constantly have to tweak it and make more specific rules because it hurts some people you still want to bring in. So it's just the fact that we want some people to come, but they find those kind of people, we have to make more and more rules. But as we make more and more rules, it gets more complicated, and it just makes it more difficult to bring anybody. And that's the situation right now. The reason why I'm an attorney and very successful in what I do is because it's so complicated that I have to sit here all day. I teach this stuff, I study this stuff, I talk about this stuff, and I talk to policymakers about it too. Just trying to fix it and keep it going. It's the reason I have a job is because it's so complicated. And I wish I did it. I shouldn't. A lot of these things I wish they were easier, especially for family kind of cases, but they're really complicated and people need help, and that's what I'm here for. But it's between politics and not wanting some people to come and making rules on top of rules. It just makes it a really messy affair. I don't think there's any way to fix it. Okay, Sanger says, I applied, I'm 130 now, applying for EDD. It affects my case. I think EDD is unemployment. I've already talked about this several times in this podcast, this video. But for a green card case, especially as family case, like an I-130 is a family-based case, you have to show that you could sponsor the foreign person, or maybe have a joint sponsor, someone else that can help. But primarily, they want to see if you're working. So if you're getting unemployment, that means you're not working. That could be problematic later on when the time comes and asking for your tax records and employment records and all that kind of stuff. So it could be a problem. It just depends. Brett Sharp on Facebook says, hello again from Denver, waiting on national visa, sent an embassy interview for K1 visa. Do you know if a sponsor is allowed to attend beneficiary interviews? Most of the time, they will not let a sponsor or a petitioner come with the interview. It depends on the embassy. Most times they don't. The last one I did where the sponsor wanted to go was in Australia. And so the K1 is a fiance visa. The fiance has to go to an embassy interview. And will the U.S. fiance be able to go? In that case, they let the U.S. fiance come into the building. They didn't let him go to the interview section where the person's interviewing. They was standing outside, like in a separate waiting room. But the officer got interested and asked the guy to come. He came to the window, asked a question, and left. Generally, I prefer the U.S. sponsor not go because they could just end up saying something, maybe a joke that's offhanded, or it may say something that's inappropriate, or the officer might judge them and say, well, you don't look like you go with them. It just opens the box up for more problems. So as an attorney, I would not recommend going to the interview. Just let the beneficiary go. Their officers are used to seeing, the fiance visa person alone. So just adding someone to the equation doesn't help unless there's something really fishy about your case or we need you to back it up, or your fiance doesn't speak English well, or the interview is going to happen in their foreign language. But if the beneficiary gets really nervous or something like that, it's got to be a very unique reason for you to go. But generally, it's not recommended to go. But I would need to know more about cases to give you that exception, which probably I would say no, you shouldn't go. But that's the situation with that. Okay, Sunita says no, they're from Nepal. We used to make with our own language to go with a lawyer. So I made the mistaken assumption that they're from India, and so it says no, they're from Nepal. But we used to make with our language. Is it good to make with a lawyer? I don't know. Because all the lawyers, they go research and see how to deal with the situation from Nepal. I actually know a former. I have a podcast called the Immigration Lawyers Podcast, and a former embassy of person I was interviewing giving green cards in Nepal. I just interviewed him a few episodes ago, like a month or two ago. So you catch that. But I would probably, set up either contact him directly, or you'd have to set up a consultation with him so I connect with him to see what the best way to deal with that situation is. Eliza, let's see, what the QT, I can't remember. Let's see, why is everything okay? Eliza says, for real, QT saying, why is everything so complicated? Samuel says, I was married with a U.S. citizen for 4 years. I came to U.S. as a fiance, got married within, citizenship for 3 years, came to the U.S. as a fiance, got married with 30 days. So Sangeet, you said you were married to a U.S. citizen before. Did they apply for a visa for you in the past? Or did you just marry them and never go through the green card process until you're divorced and now you're doing a fiance visa with someone else? That's really important. Ganesh says, which one is best travel document for travel, advanced travel, parole, or travel refugee document? Well, they all have different functions, so it's not best. It's about what your situation is. So if you're getting an advanced parole, that usually means either if you leave the United States, you're not allowed to come back in for some reason. You've had unlawful entry, or you have a green card case pending. A refugee travel document is something given to people who are asylees or refugees. And for those kind of people, you typically not supposed to use the passport of the home country anymore because you gave that up. You have to use a refugee travel document. And so you want to get that as soon as possible because, some travel sometimes pops up last second and you don't have time to it might take months to get a refugee travel document. So you want to have that ready to go. And just be mindful, not every country accepts a refugee travel document as a passport. So, for example, I think a UAE and a lot of Middle Eastern countries won't accept it. And you also have to get visas in it. So it used to be people visiting Turkey didn't need it, but nowadays I've had clients who had refugee travel documents. They need to go to the Turkish embassy, get a visa and their refugee travel document before they could visit Turkey. So check with the rules of the country you're going to, get the refugee travel document if you are a asylee refugee. But that's what you would get. Now, if you have a green card case pending, then you get advanced parole for that travel. Or advanced parole is if you have like a certain case like TPS. It gets really complicated, but essentially something where if you leave, you won't be able to come back in. You want to see if you can get advanced parole. So we're nearing the end of the hour. We're going to take some quick questions. Brett Sharp, you're welcome. Sangeet says, and I did receive a temporary green card, but I applied for permanent green card last year, but I didn't get it yet. So Sangeet, the permanent green card could take over a year. So if you filed it properly and you have the paperwork proper, it's just a matter of waiting to see what happens. QG says, right, sir, all I see is immigrants who build the U.S. like Mexicans and more. Yeah, it's a weird thing. People are tribal. QG says, immigration is complicated, but look at how many people immigrants are helping build the country. I agree with you. That's why I'm in this line of work. I just see a lot of good people that come into my office, and I help every day that make so many jobs, everything like that. And so it's like sad to see that people have this mentality. Watch Mongal says, do you teach online? Yes, I teach at Pepperdine Law School primarily nowadays for law students, but those classes are online because they shut down the campus because of coronavirus. I also teach immigration law through a system called Immigration Lawyers Toolbox and the Champions for Freedom program, but that's intended for immigration lawyers. I do put out some of the material for free. Primarily if you go to Immigration Lawyers Toolbox, the YouTube page, you'll see some stuff there, as well as if you go to JQK Law Firm, I talk about stuff there. But it depends on what kind of services. I'm about to maybe make some courses. I'm starting a nonprofit to teach some basic stuff for people to do stuff on their own. For example, that question the gentleman had about a refugee travel document, I'm going to do a video series to help answer how to go through that process through a nonprofit I'm starting. So that's going to take a couple months for that to get set up. But there's online. It really depends on what you're looking for the online courses. But I got a lot of different online courses I'm doing. Titchtrack says, when will U.S. Immigration Office open? Right now they're saying June 4th, but we'll see. I'm going to be ending it soon, so no more new questions. But sir, my uncle made a visa extension in January and was set to immigration. He had to get fingerprints. Yeah, you have to get fingerprints nowadays when you do an extension. It's a new thing. Do you know when they will reply to him for him? No, I don't. It just takes a while. Mintusab, if you collect unemployment, how long was the Latvian record for some? A lot of what you're saying, Mintusab, doesn't show up, but this is getting very specific to your case. I would say schedule a consultation. Whatchamacall, Will says, have you ever been approved in the interview? Yeah, I have cases. Less and less nowadays do cases get approved at the interview because President Trump has created secondary levels of review and slowed everything down. Plus, the computer system breaks a lot, so they can't even approve it there. Historically, most of my cases would be approved at interview. Nowadays, about 50 or 60% are approved at the interview. Yeah, I've seen ones approved at the interview and denied later as well. This because they found out either they make a mistake and they deny it. So they do an interview and then later on they get let us denied. It's either they made a mistake, which happens frequently, or the information comes up that we weren't aware of. That's the client didn't tell me. Like a client had been arrested for some gun violence, didn't show up to court, and they have a felony on the record, and they didn't tell me about that. They said they've been arrested, so they weren't dishonest or they forgot. So there's a lot of weird stuff that pops up. So unfortunately, I'm gonna be cutting it. I'm gonna be back here tomorrow at 5 p.m. again. You could just bring the questions back over there. Remind me what's going on, and we could jump on it again. 5 p.m. Pacific Tuesday. I'll be here. Look forward to talking to you all then. Thanks again for joining us. The next one. Have a good one. God bless. Bye bye.